first down. They hand off to Marlon Mack. Huge hole, 50-yard line. He's at the 40, still going near sideline. He's at the 10. He's at the 5, and he will score. Touchdown, Marlon Mack. Touchdown, INDY. And again, it's picked up. It's Darius Leonard. Leonard with his second INT, and he's streaking down the near sideline. He's at the 40. He's at the 30. He's at the 20. He's going to go. A pick six for the Maniac.
Horseshoe is back, baby. The horseshoe is back.
What is going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another episode of the Bring the Juice podcast. I am your host, Cody Felger, alongside your other host, Derek Larger. Derek, the season is almost here. So exciting. We can hardly wait for Colts football. They kick down in Jacksonville in a couple weeks here on Sunday. So before, Derek, we start the season, we start our predictions, all that stuff, I thought that we should create – now at the time that we record this, and we'll post this before the Colts make cuts on Saturday, I think the cutoff time is 4 p.m. on Saturday. The Colts have to cut their roster to 53-man. So we wanted to give our predictions on how we think that's going to play out. And so we're going to talk about the entire offense. We're going to talk about the entire defense. And we'll start with the quarterback. Derek, I guess I'll let you go here and kind of say how many quarterbacks do you think the Colts will carry this season, and who do you think those will be?
Yeah, I'm thinking that it's probably going to end up being three. It's probably going to end up being the Phillip Rivers and Jacoby Brissett, and then Eason, I believe, will be the third man. I think Sirianni, from what we've heard from Sirianni today and yesterday, said that Jacob Eason has looked really good in camp so far, says that he's really come along in his progressions and figuring out how to get the right throws in the right situations, says that he's looked really good in that department so far. So I think they're going to let him continue to develop that. And what better way to do that than to actually just watch Phillip Rivers? So I think that's going to round out this quarterback group.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm going three as well. The three you already mentioned. I feel like that's pretty set in stone as opposed to like some of these other positions, maybe a little bit. We may alter a little bit. We may change our trajectory and our guesses a little bit. But quarterback is one we can definitely agree on. Let's move to running back. How many do you think the Colts are carrying at running back, and who do you think those guys are?
I think that it is probably going to be four. I know that after the Roosevelt Knicks release, I felt like that kind of gave way to what the Colts want to have here. And I think they know that they really want to continue to keep this group together while they can, because they know even their fourth running back has the potential to see some snaps, see some really good playing time. So I think the Colts really like this group. And, I mean, Wilkins rounding it out is really good. So I think Mack, Taylor, Hines, and Wilkins all make this roster and are all available for week one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm right there with you, too. I mean, I think the Colts keep four. I know there were some question marks about will Jordan Wilkins make this final 53, especially with Roosevelt Knicks being cut. I definitely think that that's a possibility. I feel like the Colts felt like with the struggles of Knicks and he struggled with injuries also this offseason, they felt like they have a guy that they can trust more in Jordan Wilkins, and I don't blame them. I would do the same thing. So definitely going to go four there as well. Okay, this one might get a little more tricky because I know we've debated back and forth this entire offseason who we think is going to make this wide receiver core. Let's move to the wide receivers. How many do you think the Colts are going to carry?
I think they're going to carry six, and the number 6 one still escapes me. So I'm not going to make a prediction for the sixth one, because literally I can make an argument for any of them. If I had to take my best educational guess, is that the 6th wide receiver is going to be Marcus Johnson. That's my educational guess, but I'm not going to make a prediction because there's so many things that round out. But I will tell you the first 5, and that is Hilton, Pittman, Pascal Campbell. The 5th one I have is Darius Fountain. I know you and I have went back and forth a lot with the 5th and 6th options. Who do we have there? But, I mean, Zach Hicks agrees with me on this, that we think that Fountain has done enough this camp to say, I warrant a spot on this roster to get a chance. And especially since last year we were seeing that Fountain was looking like the number 2 wide receiver in camp before he obviously went down with that injury. So I think that through all of it, he deserves the benefit of the doubt here. He had a very consistent, good camp. He showed up in a lot of great areas. So I think he deserves a little spot here, a little chance to see what he can do. So that's my 5th guy.
Yeah, I'm going 6 as well. I mean, I went 5 earlier in the season, but I think with Nix being cut, that opens the opportunity for potentially another roster spot there. So I'm going to go 6. I'm going to go, obviously, Hilton. I honestly think Zach Pascal is going to be number 2 to start the year. So I'm going to go him as number 2. I'll probably, because I don't really know what Paris Campbell's role is going to be exactly. So I'll probably say Pittman and then Campbell. So those are the first 4. I mean, that's very interchangeable for me. I feel like that can vary from week to week who's the starter. But number 5, I agree with you, Derek. Actually, you've kind of got me to come around a little bit to Reese Fountain, and after just hearing what he's done in camp, I really think he has a good chance, especially with Marcus Johnson really not getting a chance. I mean, he was unclaimed for a while last year before the Colts repicked him up. So I think that a guy like Reese Fountain has more of a chance to get claimed if you did cut him as opposed to a Marcus Johnson. So I'll probably go Reese Fountain at number 5. And then Ashton Doolin's a guy that I've said, I know that he's not your favorite pick. He's maybe not the most sexy pick in the world, but for me, Ashton Doolin is very similar to a guy the Colts had years ago, Chris Milton, who was a corner. Not really a great corner, but he was a very core special teams player. And for me, I think that kind of pushes Doolin on this roster as the number 6 wide receiver. That's kind of where I'm at. And he's also fast, so maybe he can help you in the kick return department as well. But those are my 6 wide receivers, I think, right now. So tight end. Let's talk about tight end because obviously Trey Burton is injured, so you think maybe the Colts will carry another tight end. What are your thoughts? How many do you think the Colts do carry, and who do you think those guys are?
That's going to be interesting because you know that Trey Burton is going to be probably gone for a few weeks. So that almost inclines you to say that we're going to carry 4 tight ends because obviously Burton's going to remain on the roster until he comes back. Who is that 4th tight end? I'm probably going to go with Vollert, to be honest. I've seen Vollert's name pop up a lot, and obviously he was with the Chargers for the short amount of time that he was and had a few good things in Hard Knocks that everyone was talking about. So I think Vollert has made enough plays on the offensive end to warrant at least a spot at the moment until Burton gets back fully healthy, and then we figure out what to do from there.
Yeah, I'm probably going to go 4 as well. I think Vollert does make the cut for me because he's shown potential as a pass catcher, and I think that's good. You already have really good run-blocking tight ends in Jack Doyle and Mo Alley-Cox, so he kind of gives you a little bit more of a vertical threat until a guy like Trey Burton returns, and then maybe you cut him. But as it stands right now, I think Andrew Vollert's probably going to be your number 3 tight end until Trey Burton gets healthy again. So I'm going to keep 4 as well. Now let's move to the offensive line. This is a unit that we don't have questions about all 5 starters. The questions really come at the backup. And so where are you at, Derek, as far as the backups, and who do you think is going to make it? How many offensive linemen do you think they're going to carry?
Yeah, normally it's around that 8 to 9 category. I don't know. Obviously, there will be probably a few more injuries this year than what the Colts have had in previous years. But I don't anticipate the Colts to really have that many issues that they feel like they need to have 9 on the roster. I feel like they can keep another guy on the practice squad, and if things get severe, then you can tap into that. But I'm probably going to go with LaRaven Clark. I'm going to go with Hunt, and I'm going to go with Eldrin Camp. I'm going to probably go with those 3 guys, mainly because LaRaven Clark's a given. I mean, he's been performing really well in training camp. I think he deserves that spot. And Hunt, obviously, is the guy you brought in, the guy that can play, inside, plays some center. So you have your inside, your outside. And Eldrin Camp, I really like. I thought that, in the few times that I thought we would be able to see him last year, I really like his potential. So I'm going to go with those 8.
Okay, I'm going to go with 9. I'm going to include all the guys you had. I'm going to add Danny Pinter into there as well.
And
5th round pick this year from Ball State. I think the Colts really like him a lot. You don't put him on waivers. You don't risk him being picked up by another team, especially with the lack of interior depth. So for me, it's 9. So obviously the 5 starters, LaRaven Clark, Joey Hunt, and then Jake Eldrenkamp for me. Because Javon Patterson was a name I thought maybe he has a chance, but just kind of heard he's had a rough training camp so far. And he was a 7th round pick, so it's not really like you're losing a ton there. So I'm probably going to go 9 there. So let's move over to the defense now. Let's talk about the defensive line. We know probably we can kind of anticipate the 3 starters on the defensive line, but there's another position that's really open for debate right now on who's going to win that. Where are you going for the defensive line? How many are you carrying? Who's going to be the starter on that side, and who are these guys?
I want to hear your thoughts on this too. You had me start out with the offense here. I'm going to go with you starting on the defense here. I want to hear this.
Gotcha. I'm going to keep 9 on the defensive line. I really think so. And I think this is kind of hinging on if Sheldon Day is injured, which seems like he might be injured. He might miss some time. So maybe he's on PUP or something like that. Or maybe he's on, IR designation to return. We saw Tyquan Lewis do that a couple years ago. And Devin Funchess did it last year, didn't come back. But so I'm going to keep 9 as it stands right now. And I think for me, I have obviously Justin Houston, DeForest Buckner, Grover Stewart. I'm going to go Al-Qadim Muhammad is going to be my other defensive end to start the year. I really think he's progressed a lot. He's been working with Warren Sapp this offseason, so I think that's going to serve him well. He's always been a solid defender, pretty good against the run. Seems like he's gotten better at the pass rush department as well. So I think early on, for me, Al-Qadim Muhammad's my starter. Now some key reserves, Kamoko Toure, Ben Banogu on the ends. Tyquan Lewis, who's had a really strong camp so far from all accounts. I think he's your backup 3 technique to start the year. Denico Autry is another name. I think he can kind of play anywhere. And then I'll go Robert Windsor right now, 6th round pick. He's really kind of shown some stuff from what I've heard in training camp. And so that all kind of hinges on if Sheldon Day's injured. Obviously, if Sheldon Day can go out there, I think they probably they cut one of these guys, whether that be Windsor, whether that be Autry maybe. Who knows? But right now for me, I'm going to go with 9 defensive linemen on defense. Who are you going to go with here?
Yeah, I'm going with 9 defensive linemen as well. I think you pretty much hit all the guys there that, and I think it's interesting you did say Muhammad for the starting defensive end position. Mm-hmm. I definitely think that's probably a most likely possibility at this point because obviously we don't know about Toure yet, whether or not he's going to actually be the starter come week 1. We most likely think that won't happen. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, Houston, Toure, Buckner, and Muhammad. You got Denico Autry, Sheldon Day, Tyquan Lewis, Grover Stewart, and you have Windsor as well making the cut. I've kind of been on that side as well, and I think Ballard really is interested in making sure we have that depth at the defensive tackle and defensive line position specifically, so that's why I'll go 9.
Okay. Cool. Then I guess I'll move to the linebackers. This one was tricky for me because I was trying to do some number crunching. I'm going to have to cut somebody from either the linebackers or somebody from the corner group because right now with my 9 defensive linemen, that puts me at, I believe, 35 right now, if I'm not mistaken. So I still have to figure that out. Obviously, I have Bobby Okereke, Anthony Walker, Darius Leonard as your 3 starters. We've heard Zaire Franklin's been doing pretty well, so I'll probably keep him on the roster as well. So that's 4. EJ Speed is 5. I might honestly cut it there. I know some people have talked about Jordan Glasgow potentially, but I just don't see where he's going to fit. I really don't. I know he's a good special teams player, but like when you're looking at linebackers, you're trying to make the cut. I mean, I just don't know, especially with we think they could potentially carry 5 safeties. I mean, for me, I got to make the cut. I'm going to go Jordan Glasgow there, even though I really don't want to cut him because I think he's a great special teams player. I'll probably go Glasgow for the linebackers. So that would be 5, I believe, for the linebackers there.
All right. Well, I mean, since you couldn't add him into it, I am going to add him into it. I have that extra space. So Glasgow is going to round out to be my number 6. I doubt he gets really any time in linebackers unless it's certain play styles that they know they want, because in long passing down situations, and I mean long passing down situations, Glasgow can really be useful on the outside. And of course, like you said, that special teams aspect, I think the Colts drafted him for that exact reason. They really want to see him make some plays on special teams. I mean, why else would you draft a guy, even if it was late in the 6th round? It's just one of those guys that I really think they drafted him for a reason. So that's why I'm going to keep him there. I'm going to have 6 linebackers.
Yeah, and it really stinks because originally, if Trey Burton doesn't get hurt, I keep him on the roster. I mean, it's just like all this number crunching you have to do right now. It's just hard. It's just really hard to like figure out where to cut. You know, looking back on it, maybe I would cut an offensive lineman, but like right now, I think that's kind of where I'm at. We know how much Ballard values the offensive and defensive line, so I'm going to stick with that right now. All right, I'll move to the corners now. So I have Rocky Sen, Xavier Rhodes, Kenny Moore. Those are your 3 starters right away. TJ Carey, and then I have Isaiah Rodgers. Those are my 5 right now that I'm going to stick with at corner. Who do you have for the cornerback group?
Yeah, I'm going the same thing. The Rhodes, Sin, Kenny Moore, TJ Carey, and Isaiah Rodgers, those 5 pretty much rounded out. I think that if it wasn't for Marvell Tell getting out, then Isaiah Rodgers wouldn't really be that much involved with the corners. But obviously now that Marvell Tell left that position open, it kind of moves it in for a guy like Rodgers to get a spot on this.
Right, for sure. Yeah, and like there's no other really names that stand out that I think have a legitimate shot.
Yeah. Unless you want to kind of say like, unless you want to say a guy like a Travis Reed who has had some plays in training camp. I have heard his name a couple times, but he's an undrafted free agent. We kind of expected, that to be kind of an obstacle, but I mean, Travis Reed could be a guy that's a practice squad potential and somebody that in a few years could potentially do it. Cause I mean, he does have those specialties. He is a guy that is a big corner. So look for him to potentially get some involvement in the future.
Yeah. And I think he is a practice squad guy as it stands right now. If you are struck with injuries, who knows? Maybe he sees the field a lot more than we anticipate. Maybe he's on the active roster, but I agree with you. 5 there. And the safety position, I feel like is pretty easy. We have an idea. We're going to definitely agree on this. I mean, 5 safeties. You got Hooker, you got Willis, you got Blackman, you got Tavon Wilson, you got George Odom. I mean, I feel like that's pretty cut and dry, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's the 5. We've not really talked about anyone else. I mean, you and I are pretty dead set on that group, and I think the majority of the local media is dead set on these 5 guys right here. So, I mean, I was talking about it in the video the other day that you guys are going to see soon, that this is like the most solidified safety group that I have seen for the Colts in a while. It feels like since the beginning of the decade, since I've seen a safety group that I could go back to the 5th safety and honestly feel comfortable that they're in my backfield, honestly. Yeah.
And I think another reason why I cut Jordan Glasgow is because Tavon Wilson can play some dime linebacker as well. Yeah, I think that'll do well because I know Glasgow was listed as a safety, but he also played linebacker at Michigan. So, like, he could do a little bit of both. And I think Tavon Wilson potentially, a guy who's done it, a little bit more about him. That's why I have him making it over Glasgow. But it really is a slippery slope. It's a crapshoot. Like, you just don't know.
Yeah, you don't know
change all the time. Yeah. Like, we didn't expect Roosevelt Nix to be released, and here we are recording a day later. Like, Roosevelt Nix is gone. So you just never know with this roster. And then we'll talk about really quick here, the special teams unit, kicker, punter. I mean, I feel like we're on the same wavelength here in terms of kicker. It's pretty much Chase McLaughlin. Yeah. I mean, I feel like he's pretty much locked it down at this point. But do you have any thoughts on Chase McLaughlin? I mean, we've talked about it a lot, so I don't know if you have any additional things on him.
No, I think that he's just had the slighter edge on Blankenship so far. I know that it's been close. It's actually been a lot closer than what I originally thought it was going to be. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, Chase McLaughlin in the first scrimmage when they were going 100% all out, throwing him in different aspects, different situations, things of that nature. He was perfect on the day. I know he struggled a little bit more than Blankenship on the second scrimmage, but I mean, when you look at the total difference, I just thought McLaughlin, when he went perfect on the first scrimmage day, that just spoke volumes to me.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And it's different. Like we've talked about it. It's different between kicking in practice when nobody's really around you to kicking in a game-like setting. And I think we saw a lot about, there's just so much pressure in game time situations. And Chase McLaughlin certainly seemed to be a little bit more clutch, at least at this point, than Rodrigo. So,
and not to mention, both of these guys, whichever one we go with, have incredible legs. I've been hearing McLaughlin hit that 57-yarder. They both hit their 57-yarders, and they had room to spare. They could have went 60. I mean, that's incredible to know that we have a leg like that. I mean, Vinny could probably make a 50-yarder at this point, but I don't know if he would ever be accurate enough to do it consistently again. So,
right.
I mean, McLaughlin and Blankenship both hitting 57-yarders with room to spare on those kicks. That's impressive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's certainly exciting. Both young guys. So whoever the Colts roll with, we're going to be excited for them. They both have a tremendous potential. Both we think are going to be pretty good kickers in this league. Let's talk about the punter, Rigoberto Sanchez. He has barely been talked about, but he's been one of the best punters in the NFL ever since the Colts signed him originally, and he's been their punter, I believe, since 2017. I believe Pat McAfee retired right when Chris Ballard got here. And so Rigoberto has been Chris Ballard's punter ever since he's been the GM. He's been a good one at that. Give me your thoughts on him.
Yeah, he is Pat McAfee without the personality. It's basically it. Pat McAfee had the personality, and he also had a couple of the big hits, the ones that made him famous, right? It was the ones that kick-started the fact that he was actually a punter, but yet here he was just blowing up a Broncos returner on a kickoff. Yeah. I remember watching that, and I remember waking my parents up when they were asleep, and I was watching that in the living room, and I was laughing so hard. And my brother and I were so hyped when we saw that, and they yelled at us so much. But that was such a great thing, though. And McAfee, he had a couple of those, the onside kicks and the fake punts. He converted on some of those, and you saw his personality. That's who he was. Sanchez, just the same thing. He just doesn't have it. Nobody really knows about him until you actually look at the numbers and you're like, wow, this guy actually does really well at kicking the football. So, I mean, Sanchez been a good punter, been reliable. Hasn't had, many issues where it's like, wow, what was that 30-yard punt or whatever. Mm-hmm. So, he's been consistent. He's been good. So people oftentimes take for granted the value of a punter, like a consistent, good punter. I mean, how great is it to know that you have a punter that you never have to talk about? You never have to talk about him. So that's a good thing.
Right. And that's kind of similar with like the offensive line. People have been asking us, how has this player been doing? How's this player been doing? Well, unless you're Quentin Nelson and you have a highlight reel of pancaking people, no news about an offensive lineman is really good news. And that's the same way with the punters. But before we end, you mentioned Pat McAfee. I just want to talk about Pat McAfee for a second. Why not? Okay. A little impromptu. I was actually at that game, that Broncos game, when he did that. Oh, it was incredible. Incredible.
How loud was the stadium when they saw that?
It's the loudest I've ever heard it. It was amazing.
I was at the game when he threw that fake punt to Swoop, and he got that 25-yarder. Yeah, unfortunately, we got destroyed by the Steelers, but nonetheless, that was a really funny moment to watch. Yeah.
Yeah, and then also when he recovered his own onside kick against the Texans, that was one of my favorite moments of Pat McAfee's career. That would have been awesome to be at that game because the Colts obviously won that game. But, Pat McAfee, man, he's a legend. He's WWE now, which is hilarious. But
he is the ultimate mogul. He really is. Went from a football player to a podcaster to then announcer and then becomes global branding icon and then becomes a WWE wrestler. I mean, what can't this guy do? Like, honestly, he is such a great personality. It's really good to see him have the success he's had, honestly.
Yeah.
You don't see many punters get the kind of success he's had after football.
Absolutely. Well, if Pat McAfee's trajectory is any indication, you know what's next on our agenda, Derek?
What's that?
WWE, baby. Let's go.
Oh, my God.
Give him the chair.
It was funny because Pat McAfee originally told, I believe he told Irsay that, he knew how to hold kicks. He said, in order to get my first gig with the Colts and to be picked up in the undrafted process, he asked him, do you know how to hold? He said, yes, sir, absolutely. He said, I've never held a day in my life.
Right.
He said, I was so nervous the first time I had to go out there and do that because that's funny, dude. He has so many great stories.
Oh, so
I
many.
just could listen to that man talk forever, honestly.
Yeah, for sure. All right, guys, that'll do it for this episode. Looking at our projections for the Colts' final 53-man roster. Let us know what your thoughts are. Do you agree with us? Are there some other cuts you would have made, some other guys you would have kept on the roster? Let us know in the comments below. For Derek and myself, thanks, guys, so much. And as always, go Colts.